Welcome to your Daily Detroit for Wednesday, July 3rd, 2019. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Sven Gustafson. Happy Independence Day Eve, everybody.
Sven, so we got an invite in our inbox to a 30-minute media hour. You going?
Nah, I'm not giving him my 15 minutes of fame for that.
Well, on today's show,
Lee Iacocca was a major player in American automotive history. The man behind the Ford Mustang and the resurrection of Chrysler. He passed away Tuesday.
Metro Detroit's unemployment rate is higher than the rest of the country.
A new grocery market opens in downtown Detroit.
A drive-thru deli meat counter is coming to Farmington Hills.
And I catch up with soccer correspondent Fletcher Sharpe as red-hot Detroit City FC heads into its most pivotal stretch of games this season.
Quality, hard work, commitment. The stuff America was made of. Without them, there is no future. I have one and only one ambition for Chrysler, to be the best. What else is there?
If you follow the news at all, you probably already know that Lee Iacocca, the former Ford and Chrysler executive who not only helped bring the Mustang into the world, but also brought Chrysler back from the brink, has died at the age of 94.
Iacocca is probably best known for his time as the president and CEO of the Chrysler Corporation and later chairman. Chrysler hired Iacocca in the late 70s when it was hemorrhaging money. He successfully lobbied Congress to back $1.5 billion in loan guarantees to help keep the company afloat. The company paid back all $1.2 billion of the money it borrowed 7 years early, thanks to extensive company-wide restructuring and hit products like minivans and the fuel-efficient K-car.
Although he moved to California after his time in Detroit, his legacy here is important in many ways. And Sven, I want to talk about for a little bit because I know that, you do auto coverage for various things. My mentor actually, and I'm looking to get her on the show. One of my mentors interviewed Lee quite a few times. So I'm hoping to get her on the show to talk about it. But he has a really colorful history. He's one of those people that, love him or hate him, he always filled the seats.
Yeah, he was everywhere in the 80s. He kind of personified Detroit in a sense. Like he was sort of this no-nonsense, can-do, everyman, like fix-it man kind of. And I think he, garnered a lot of respect through his performance and his ability to turn around Chrysler. And I just got to throw this out here too, because my memories of people like that of the 80s are like, there was a time when everybody became weirdly and inexplicably obsessed with Vanna White, the woman who turns the letters on
and
Wheel
she's
of Fortune.
Still on the air.
Yeah, but she was like huge for a while. I don't know why. And Oliver North, remember him? So that's kind of the company that he keeps in a way. But he was sort of seen as not only the pitch man, but he was just sort of like everyone looked to him like that guy can fix it.
In fact, I think in 1988. He was seriously considered for a presidential run, right?
Yeah, he was. I think 2 different presidential cycles, but he always kind of balked and, never went anywhere. I think for a Senate run too, maybe in the early 90s, I think I read. One
of the things I thought was interesting about him is that he was really an example of the power of family patriarchy and family businesses in Detroit. One of the things is that he had so much power at Ford with the launch of the Mustang and everything. And one of the things
which he helped birth. Yeah.
Yeah, he helped make that happen. And the thing is he still got fired. Henry Ford II still booted him out the door. And his reasoning, at least according to multiple sources, was, I just didn't like him.
Right. And I think there was a little bit of resentment that here was this outsider who didn't have the Ford name. But you've also read the Lee Iacocca autobiography, right? I have a copy of it I got from one of those little free libraries. And, it's one of the books I intend to read eventually. But doesn't he made some serious allegations?
He has
right?
He did not have kind words for Henry Ford II. He thought that he had a lot of ethnic and racist biases.
So Iacocca at Chrysler became sort of the face of the company. He appeared in all their ads for the longest time. We just aired a little bit at the top of this segment, and his famous marketing slogan was pretty genius actually. If you find a better car, buy it.
Nice and straightforward, right?
Frank.
I got to say, Chrysler has had some great ad campaigns over the years. Even if you think about the imported from Detroit and the impact that made. And Iacocca had left a mixed legacy with Chrysler. He actually got a lot of scorn because that's one of the things is dived into with obituaries and books is that he and Kirk Kerkorian
the billionaire investor.
Yeah, they tried to mount a takeover bid for Chrysler, and it was unsuccessful. But
This was right after, I think, or right before, excuse me, I think maybe like a year before Daimler, the parent company of Mercedes-Benz, ended up buying, merging with Chrysler, merger of equals, quote unquote.
which was not.
And which was disastrous in the end.
So one might even wonder, were they right? Would they have been better off under Krikorian and Iacocca? Because you had Daimler, and then now it's part of Fiat, and we all know that they're shopping.
Yeah,
they're shopping those brands because Fiat's former CEO Sergio Marchionne, who recently died, said that there's no way that Chrysler is going to be competitive long term because it doesn't have the resources.
Right. They need bigger scale. But Chrysler, interestingly, scrapped a plan to name the headquarters in Auburn Hills after Lee Iacocca after this failed takeover bid. They saw it as a kind of a traitorous act in a way, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, complicated but impactful legacy. We'll have some links to the obits in the show notes if you're interested. Metro Detroit's unemployment rate is running higher than the national average, and the jobless rate is increasing across the region. That's according to new data released today. Nationally, the unemployment rate sits at 3.4% for May of 2019. However, Metro Detroit's rate is the highest nationally at 4.3%. That's held basically steady for a while. However, a couple of what the Bureau of Labor and Statistics calls divisions that make up Metro Detroit have seen increases of 0.8% in the jobless rate, both the areas that cover Wayne County and Oakland County up through Farmington. Tacoma Lakewood, Washington shares the highest jobless rate in the nation, and the Detroit Warren Livonia division, and that covers mostly Wayne County, sits at 5.1%.
The state of Michigan has issued new emergency rules outlining requirements for new marijuana businesses now that voters have legalized recreational weed. The rules are meant to help local municipalities and prospective business owners decide whether they want to participate in the new industry. The new rules are much less strict than those governing medical marijuana businesses. For example, there are no capital requirements for adult use business licenses. Some medical marijuana facilities had to prove they had as much as $500,000 in capital to get a license. Trading plants and seeds between licensed growers and businesses will also be allowed, as will expanded home delivery. Applicants will also have to submit what's called a social equity plan, which is meant to encourage participation by people who've been arrested or penalized under previous marijuana prohibition laws. The state's marijuana regulatory agency says it plans to begin taking business applications November 1st.
High-end grocer Plum Market opened a grab-and-go food spot today in downtown Detroit. The market has a focus line of groceries like eggs and milk, but from reports and peeking in the windows yesterday, it's mostly grab-and-go stuff. They have Mon Jin Lao sushi rolls, and part of it is a Zingerman's coffee shop.
So, Jer, what I hear you saying is that although it's a grocer and definitely a nice addition to downtown Detroit, which needs more of the same, this is really kind of for the office crowd, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely staples there, but if you're going to do like a full shop, and this is from looking at the pictures, a contributor, Randy Walker, sent us some stuff that I took a look at. And I'll say this, he said that he was impressed. He said it was really bright. He was impressed that the amount of groceries they could fit on their smaller shelves was kind of impressive. But I got to say this, Sven, I don't know if there's anything more new Detroit than a Moet champagne dispenser.
Yeah, I saw that pictures of that Randy sent us. It's amazing. So this is like a vending machine, literally, of 187 milliliter splits of Moet and Chandon, which is very nice champagne. And I think it's $15, right? So you insert the cash or presumably your debit card, and out pops a little split of champagne. Very nice. New restaurant is coming to downtown Farmington. It's called Detroit Eatz, and that's Eatz with a Z.
You know how we love our Z's on Daily Detroit.
Yeah, you could go there and bring it back to the Briggs House. Eat your Detroit Eats at the Briggs House. Anyway, Detroit Eatz plans to open sometime before October 1st in a former Burger King, but here's the kicker. Crains reports that they'll be serving not just their standard menu of burgers, sandwiches, and salads, but also bulk deli meats and cheeses through the drive-through window.
That's absurd.
Can I get a quarter pound of corned beef sliced thin, please?
I mean, my uncle, though. I have an uncle. He was a window washer.
I mean, but why not, though? What's wrong with that?
I mean, if we're
It's
going
like
to
a grocery market deli counter, but you don't have to get out of the car. Perfect for Metro Detroit.
That's true. That's true. I'll say this, though. A charcuterie drive-through? Now that, sign me up. That's fancy.
Detroit City FC pounded Toledo Villa on Sunday 6-0 to extend their unbeaten streak to 9 games. It's also their 9th straight game without conceding a goal. Le Rouge now head into the long holiday weekend in the top spot in the NPSL Great Lakes Conference Division, with 2 big games scheduled against their strongest rivals. And joining us to talk about this is Fletcher Sharpe, our soccer correspondent and co-host of the Outer Drive podcast. Fletcher, how's it going?
It's going pretty well.
Good.
From what I've surmised, Detroit City's held their opponents scoreless for 820 minutes. In that time span, you could watch the Titanic like 4 times.
That's good. That's good analysis, man. I like that. Yeah, so I actually went down to Keyworth yesterday. Took my son. It was my first game that I've been able to go to of the season. And Fletcher, man, I got to say, I came away really impressed. I mean, Toledo did not strike me as all that bad of a team. I know they've really struggled this year. I think they've only got 1 win all season. But they gave City a pretty good match, at least for the first half an hour or so. But, City is really just playing some really good soccer. They're fast, they're athletic, they keep the ball moving. Nobody really stays on the ball very long. They win 50-50 balls and they limit mistakes.
Well, to your first point, Toledo really isn't great. They got their first win recently against Columbus and actually knocked them out of the playoff picture as a result. But to Detroit's point, they've really gelled. Coach Trevor has brought a 3-5-2 formation. As a result, it's kind of, I don't want to say confused teams because they've played every team at least once now, but they've gelled to the point to where like the ball moves quickly, the counterattack springs quickly, the wings play the ball well, and the attacking mids like really get into it. One player as of late, Max Todd, who when he first played for Detroit was a forward. Mm-hmm. Coach moved him back to the midfield, and he's scored 6 goals in the last 3 games, and he's like been really at it. If he's not scoring, he's assisting. If he's not assisting, he's putting the ball up the field and giving it to someone who can give it to someone. He's getting a lot of hockey assists. Like, it's really great to see the middle of their team like kind of function and gel together. At first, it was like Cyrus Sadie is the guy. You mark Cyrus, the team's kind of shut down. At this point, they can bring Cyrus off the bench and say, hey, come in, pick up 35, 40 minutes, pick up 20 minutes at the end of the game. Don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. We're good here. And that's super dangerous. That's something that most teams don't have. They don't even have Cyrus, let alone have a guy they can start ahead of Cyrus to bring him off the bench. So
yeah. The other thing is, I mean, we have to mention, 9 straight games without conceding a single goal, which is incredible. And I got a clue for why that is. Their defensive line, those guys are huge. I mean, they're just towering. Like, I got a good view in the second half of the left back, Musa Giai, who plies his trade at Eastern Florida State College, which, I had never heard of before. But, man, that guy is a beast.
Yeah, Musa and Jalen Chrysler out of Duke and Stephen Like, they used to have Steven and maybe before Zach Bach, who wasn't that tall, but he was a physically imposing guy. Now they have like 3 or 4 very large center backs. And Musa and Jalen move very well for their size. So they have 3 center backs who can move very well, who can also get the ball up the field and like maybe not dribbling up the field, but like get nice long passes to the wings. Mm-hmm. That's a huge asset. Like that's like the perfect center back for this team. Someone who can get the ball, win it without drawing a foul, get the ball up the wings, get the ball up to the top of the field, and then get back on D. That's like the perfect center back for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so big weekend coming up. City plays host Friday at Keyworth to Grand Rapids FC, which is in 3rd place. And then on Sunday, they travel to play AFC Ann Arbor, which is in 2nd place, trailing City by just 2 points. Previous matches this season with both teams were both 0-0 draws. Fletcher, how important are these games? And how key is City's obvious momentum going to be going into these matches?
Super important for both. Before the weekend started, Grand Rapids was actually in 2nd place. They played AFC Ann Arbor. Actually went down. Ann Arbor went down a guy. And Ann Arbor ended up winning 2-0 with 10 players. So that's pretty impressive.
Wow.
The one thing I will say that worries me a little bit about Detroit's streak is while they've been rolling opponents, when they played Ann Arbor and played Grand Rapids, both those games were 0-0 draws.
Right.
Every other game has been, a victory of at least 2 goals. Maybe there's one with 1 goal, but they've been rolling teams. They've been rolling teams who aren't prepared to handle their pressure. Grand Rapids is a very stout team. Ann Arbor is a very stout team. So pressing them the same way they press these other teams, if your first game ever to watch Detroit City was during this streak, you got to see a lot of smoke from the fans, a lot of cheering, a lot of jumping up and down. I don't expect them to put 3 or 4 goals up on Grand Rapids or Ann Arbor. No. But I will say they're playing well enough that if they get a win in one of those 2 games, a win and a tie definitely, but a win in one of those 2 games, they've locked up their playoff spot, and they're good.
All right, Fletcher Sharpe, he covers Michigan soccer for Midfield Press. He's also co-host of the Outer Drive podcast. Fletcher, as always, thanks so much, man.
Thanks for having me.
And that'll do it for our show before the 4th of July holiday. Remember to have a restful one and enjoy your time with your friends and family. We'll see you on the flip side, as this is the last show of the week for us. We're going to kick back and enjoy the fireworks and maybe a cold one or 2 by the pool. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. Remember to leave a Budweiser and a rifle out under your America tree tonight for Kid Rock, or he won't leave you any fireworks.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.